that I would make a video showing how I don't get cracks in my tube when I form. So I have shaped profiled piece of cane. I did all that before, and my profiler has a nice thing. I can score the collar a little bit, which I think helps. It's just a nice little bit there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to score the tube. I like to do 5 lines, one right down the middle, and then one on either side. If you can see them on there, you cannot. Kind of. And then one in. So like one in the middle, one out, one out, one in, so that I've got 5 evenly spaced. I just kind of eyeball it, hope for the best. This is just so the cane itself will have a little bit of flex when it bends. And when you get back to the end of it, you can kind of push your knife. This is just a cheap X-Acto knife. I took it from work. They give us these for free, and I say, oh, free reed knife. And I take them home. They're great. I can't imagine they cost very much. Sometimes I use these little ones as well. They're worse just because this breaks. It's garbage. So this is a Hertzberg reed, so the next thing I'm going to do is just bevel the ends of it real quick. That's not really part of the process for getting the tube to not crack. What I'm doing with this bevel on this is I like to make mine pretty shallow, pretty far back, about to here-ish, where the flare starts, and that's I like a nice shallow bevel, keep my tip opening kind of low so I can play with the first wire more. It just keeps my reed a little bit lower, which is what I like. So the next thing I do is I use a straight edge, fold my reed in half. My profiler has a scoring blade in the center as well, so I can usually get that pretty close to about halfway. And then I gotta cut myself a piece of wire here, and I'll put this on. It's my first wire. I generally go about 1 millimeter behind the collar, and I will fix that up a bit more when I'm actually, working on this reed. But for this process right now, it's just to keep the reed closed at the tube. This is the important part. This is where it starts to get important. While you're doing this, you want this wire to be tight during this process. It'll loosen up as the reed dries. As you go on, you don't want your first wire to be as tight. It'll choke up on the reed. Pull back. I'm pulling away from myself, pulling both directions so that it's taut there. And then I turn 45 degrees. Pull back. 45 degrees. Pull. Quarter turn. Pull. I get more approximate with it because I know my own strength and stuff. You want to be exact with it while it's new. I like to get this all the way closed up. And then I clip. Ideally, it's pretty much flat, mostly flat. Then you get the cotton boxing thread, just, cotton. It's wet. I've used these so much. They're so gnarly. And I come around this way. I do about halfway down the tip of the reed, around the top so it has like an anchor point, wrap around that a few times, and I don't really focus on getting too tight until I get down to this section of the reed. So I'll just wrap this, increasing, pulling tight. By this point down here, I'm pulling very, 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 very tight, about as tight as I can pull, wrapping around this first wire, and then down the tube I will maintain pulling that tight. This is difficult to show with a camera propped up on a music stand, but this is pulled very tight, sealed very far shut. Again, this will, as the reed dries over time, loosen up. I know Barry Stees uses rubber bands for this process so that it doesn't loosen up like that. I just realized I never finished the other read of my mandrel. Give me a second here. This feels like one of those, like Zoom that was on PBS, where they would teach you how to bake something, and they'd be like, we did it ahead of time so you don't have to wait. When I was a kid, I was like, why would they do that to me? They did it so I didn't have to like watch a cake bake for 45 minutes, because that's not television, folks. So this is what I'll be showing you what I'm doing. I just forgot I already had a read on the mandrel. Transfer to my drying rack here. So I use this forming mandrel specifically. I love it very, very much. It is the one from Justin Miller, the Miller Pro. What I like about it, the tip, you can't really see. It's kind of squared off. It's flattened. I do like this little score in here, although I like my reeds a little further back than that. This gets in, and again, I like my first wire to be somewhat flat so I have room to play with it. When if you make it so your first wire is very open, then if you need to open your first wire more, you can't. So this works its way in. I push it against my chest. I'm holding the tip of the reed. I'm holding at the first wire, and I'm very slowly, oh, you get that wonderful, wonderful noise. That's about as far as it goes because I've pulled it so tight. This is when I get my pliers out, and I very gently start to open the very back of the reed, mashing the cane down just a little bit, gradually easing it on. I got another couple millimeters there. Same process. Squeeze a little harder. Again, gradual, gradual, gradual. Pushing even more. Good God. I'm going to have like an indent in my sternum by the time I'm in my 70s, and archaeologists will be puzzled. Again, push all the way back. This time, so instead of going to the very, very back of the tube, this piece of cane's funky. I should have put another wire on there. I'm going to go a little bit further up so that I can just guarantee it gets back and round it out the way I would like it to be. And then I generally let it sit on there until I do my next read. And then I'll transfer it to my drying rack. I have one over here, in here somewhere. There are forming mandrels that have removable pins. I think this is actually the Steez one. They're great. I like it. These pins themselves, the ones I have, I bought this from someone on Facebook. I don't know. I don't remember. I didn't seek them out. The pins themselves are too narrow for my vocal, so I don't use that. I do just, very carefully pop it off of the mandrel. The tube's kind of round, pretty round. And I like this. It's flat on top, which I don't super love. And I push it down as far as it goes. What using this would simplify is I would just pop this out. I would, place it wherever it needs to be, and it wouldn't leave that post until it's dry. Now, with these I did about 2 days ago. The thread is mostly dry. These are all from today. I will let them sit for anywhere from a week, 2 weeks. It's been so humid lately, I'll actually probably let them sit longer. In the winter, I let them sit a little less long. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'll pop them off. I'll go, and this is my previous batch. I put on 3 wires. These ones I measure out, and I can grab really any of these. You can even see this last one where the tube did. Oh, it doesn't focus. I've got a terrible camera. I spent $150 on my phone, folks. The camera's not going to be great. Actually, the middle scoring part did give a little bit, and there's you can't see that at all. It's so unuseful. You can see where the split catches in my collar and doesn't continue into the blade of the reed. And I've even, once I'm going to start working on these tomorrow. I'm going to glue them up, work on them. Once I do that, the first step I do is actually there's like a lip on my collars. Let's see if the camera works again. Real smart idea, bud. little lip on the collar, I will actually take a knife and cut that back to the collar so that there is a distinct drop, and that will cut out kind of any of the structural damage that I have there. So that is my reed forming process for the most part. Yeah, these will sit. I think the really important part is pulling the thread very tight around that 9 or so millimeters before and leading up to, yeah, this bottom third or so, a centimeter away from the first wire, just pulling that thread as tight, getting it as taut as you possibly can, all the way down to the bottom of the tube. And then I would swear by this forming mandrel. I think he makes the pins that go into this sucker. I should really invest in those. I don't have an excuse for not getting them, except for that I don't have them. But I think the flat beveled part of it really seals the deal. I think it's so excellent. Any questions, just call me.